Welcome to Funding and Disrupting, the most in-depth business podcast for companies looking to raise money and the investors who fund them. Every episode, we interview a funded founder, plus the investor who funded them, to get the real story of how it all came together. If you're searching for funding for a disruptive technology or business, or you're searching for the best companies to invest in, then you've come to the right place. This episode of Funding and Disrupting is brought to you by Aura Collective, a leading tech PR and marketing firm. Let's get funding and disrupting.
Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Keith Herman, and welcome to today's interview on Funding and Disrupting. We are thrilled to have the founder and CEO of INSLY. INSLY provides a fully extensible suite of software solutions that can be combined with your own custom modules to both simplify and completely automate all tasks required to run a successful insurance business. INSLY recently raised 1.3 million euros in a seed round with Concentric as one of their longtime investors. Short and Risto, the founder of Concentric, was kind enough to introduce us to Risto to learn about his experience raising venture capital and his dealings with Concentric. Risto is an insurance innovator and also investor. He's been in the insurance business for more than 20 years. He not only worked for an insurance company, but he is impressively responsible for establishing 5 insurtech startups. And now we welcome our guest, Risto Rossar of INSLY. How are you, Risto?
Hello. Thank you for having me. And I think, really cool in a sunny Estonia. So, yeah.
We're excited to have you. And for people who are listening, you live in Tallinn, correct? The capital of the Republic of Estonia. Is that correct?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. But at the moment, I'm on a nice island in Estonia.
Well, terrific. I'm glad you mentioned that. So for the people not familiar with Estonia, let's just kind of briefly give them an idea. It's a country in Northern Europe. It's bordered to the north by the Gulf of Finland, across from Finland. To the west is the Baltic Sea, across from Sweden. And to the south is Latvia, with the eastern bordered by Lake Peipus and Russia. The territory of Estonia also consists of the mainland and 2,222 islands on the eastern coast of the Baltic Sea. And Tallinn is the capital of Estonia. And you're obviously on one of those 2,222 islands today, correct?
Interesting, because if I were in a school, they told us there's 1,500 islands, but maybe there's more of them now. But yeah, I'm on the biggest one at the moment, called Saaremaa.
I imagine it's kind of, like when we went to school, they used to say there were 9 planets. Now, arguably, there's 8, but there's an infinite amount of other galaxies. So yeah, perhaps I guess they discovered another 722 islands. Tell us, what was it like growing up in Estonia?
I grew up Soviet time. That was a strange world compared with living at the moment, but the country is still the same. I think it's kind of now having been in many countries for the work and holidays, I think like Estonia is quite, I would say, a stress-free place to be. Which I would say on average stress level is low, it's green, and we have 4 seasons. That's kind of also actually good for the human beings. It's not the same all the time. I think it's quite a nice place to live and work, specifically now when you don't need to be in let's say, London or wherever to do the business. You can do business as well from the nice island of Estonia as you can do from the city of London. It's getting better and better, I think, to live here.
Well, that's very encouraging and nice to know that there are places in the world that are actually relatively stress-free, as you put it, especially with everything going on these days. Tell us, how did you end up in the insurance sector?
I ended up in the insurance sector around 20 years ago. I was actually then working in the insurance company, but I was managing their investments. So I didn't know much about insurance, because insurance companies have, let's say, 2 sides. One is insurance business, as they have a lot of money, then they need to invest their money as well. I was on that money investing side. And then in the year 2000, when I saw that the banking industry was already in Estonia mostly done online. So we had internet banks and you can do everything in internet. but insurance was not there. So insurance was still kind of quite manual process. And then I had an idea that why not start selling insurance in internet in the year 2000. And we set up the website. And out of that idea grew like the biggest insurance broker company in 3 Baltic states. I think we were one of the first really digital insurance broker company in the world. We're really kind of sold in internet and had a lot of technology to automate all the processes. So that's how I ended up with insurance. And then that business I ran until 2014 when I sold the broker business, and then my journey as an investor and INSLY developer kind of from there. That's the short story how I ended up with insurance. I think really over half of the insurance startups are created by non-insurance people. And that's quite, seems to be like if you're inside the industry, it's very tough to innovate. But outsiders are more relaxed to do new things.
In your area of the world, Estonia is a popular area for startups, as is Finland. What makes it so appealing to form a company there?
I think probably forming the company is not maybe the main driver. I think the main driver why startups, why Estonia, I think, is one of the first or second number of startups per capita in the world. It's like just we are a very small country. And I think Estonians are quite entrepreneurial. And in order for the Estonian to do something meaningful, they need to really think globally. So like, it's not possible to do any meaningful business in our country if you're not like monopoly selling electricity or something like that. I think we also had early success stories like Skype, for example. Like I think Skype was one of the lucky, like combining our entrepreneurial mindset, small country, and Skype success. I think these probably kind of created quite strong headwinds for Estonian startup. Because if you have the successful exit, that spins out, let's say, money was created and a lot of, let's say, ex-Skype persons created the new startups. And probably, I think most of Estonian current unicorns are actually grown out of the Skype. I think that's kind of that was our lucky story.
You're saying that the people who founded Skype were interested in incubating and encouraging other people to develop technologies that could be used globally?
You see how the successful company is created, how the global successful company is created, let's say, in Estonia by the same people, by similar people than you. So you think you don't actually need to be like the superstar or Jeff Bezos to create, like, anyone can create a successful unicorn. And if you see, like the guy with whom I was working in the same room, I created the unicorn. I'm not worse off. And I think you get the self-confidence. You get also like the money, because if there is the exits, then, many people will get enough money, start investing or bootstrapping their own companies. And that's how kind of the snowball starts rolling. Yeah, I think that's how it is.
What areas of your business have you found that you spend a considerable amount of time other than the business and the finance part?
Clearly product and customers. So, and these two go kind of in combination. So they're kind of thinking what the product has to be and selling myself, meeting the customers, talking with customers. Specifically in an early phase, you need to do both. You need to drive the product development and you need to talk with customers. And that's what probably is a very important part of having a reasonable, the good product market fit. Because it's, again, very rarely you see the companies with an initial product, initial idea. That's how it goes. You have probably several years of iterations, mini pivots that comes out of product development and talking with customers.
Now, we're going to transition here for a moment. I was poking around on the INSLY website and I noticed references to surfing. Specifically, it says, innovation is a matter of swim or drown, and INSLY helps you surf. And innovation is a matter of sink or swim, but you have to test the water first. You'll have to forgive me, but I was unaware of Estonia being a place for surfing. Where did this analogy come from, and how did it appear in your marketing for an insurance platform?
It's a good question. Like approximately half a year ago, we started the process of getting our story and our language and everything kind of, good. So, and we had some consultants with whom we kind of exchanged ideas. And at one point, that surfing thing came as a potential suggestion. And by the way, I also myself am quite strong surfer, but that came like independently of that. But of course, as I am a big fan of surfing, then I kind of liked that concept. Estonia actually is not a surfing country, but you can windsurf and you can kite, but we don't have big waves here. But it somehow resonated because surfing is, with goal was what we wanted to do. We want to convey the message that it's actually quite simple to build insurance products. And as with the surfing, it's kind of, you think that it's really hard to surf. Actually, it kind of is hard to surf. But when and then we had that magical surfboard concept. If we will give you the magical surfboard, then it's easy to surf. We kind of are giving to the customers the training or the magical surfboard that they can actually surf. That's how we ended up there. And the pictures look nice as well.
I agree. It looks very inviting. It looks a lot of fun. Unfortunately for me, I had a really bad experience trying to surf in Costa Rica in a place called Boca Barranca where I almost drowned. But I mean, certainly it's very appealing and it seems very relaxing and fun. I think it probably resonates with a lot of people. I mean, it does with me. And I think that's great and a good angle to go. Let's get into the details of what INSLY offers and why it's unique. Tell us about that.
Yes, we see ourselves as like the company who helps to create digital insurers or digital MGAs. If, let's say, you are the MGA or the insurance company, with our help, you really become like a digital superstar. And how we can do that, and that's what is our magical surfboard, is that we are able to build your insurance products without writing any line of the software code.
Talk about digital insurance. Just let's make it really simple for the people that are listening. When you say we're going to go digital, what does that mean in the insurance space?
I mean, in my mind, actually, it means that all the insurance has to be digital. So there is no way of, let's look now, maybe 5 years. I think there is no place for non-digital insurance products anymore. And I don't mean that you as a customer in principle should buy it digitally. So that's also very good direction. But what I mean is that, say, you as the insurance company, you should operate your business completely digital, even if the customer buys from your office for some strange reasons after 5 years. I mean, in that case, that office employee should kind of use the digital tools, digital invoices, digital renewals, like everything should follow after that. So we kind of, it's not like B2C, but our value proposition more like B2B2C. So first we convert you internally to be a digital company. And then if you want, and most likely you want, you can also start serving your customers in digital channels.
Now, what do you feel makes you unique?
I think that's we have two things what makes us unique. Firstly, we can build your insurance products, meaning, let's say, home insurance, travel insurance products, so that we don't write any line of the software code. And that means a quote form, rating engine, document templates, everything what you need to have. So we will set it up within weeks and without, in principle, in a drag and drop manner. In the same way that you, let's say, some times ago, when you wanted to build a website, you needed to go to the developers. Today, in most cases, when you want to create your insurance product, you go to developers. But in INSLY case, it's not so. In INSLY case, you go like to wix.com, that the website builder tool, like similar thing. You go there, you go to the INSLY website and you build your own insurance products without any development needed. And this is our, let's say, that makes us really speedy to deliver insurance products, as well as the budget of building insurance product is really low compared to doing the big implementation and IT projects. So this is our, let's say, main competitive advantage. There are not very many companies in the world who can do that in the insurance today. So we can do that. And second thing is that we can actually cover like full functionality from the sales process until like financial transactions of the insurance company. And these two things in one product, like low code or no code product building and full functionality of insurance company needs, that makes us quite stand out from the pack from what is at the moment available on the insurance software market today.
With regards to the insurance, you're agnostic, meaning you help people with health insurance, life insurance, car insurance. It doesn't matter what type of insurance, or are you focused in a specific area at this time?
We are quite agnostic. Actually, we don't do today life. So we do all non-life, but life is only kind of death. But health insurance, car insurance, all the non-life products we do, but life product is a bit different. Life we yet haven't developed. But in non-life space, we are completely product agnostic. We have done from, let's say, small travel insurance until aviation products, what are quite complex. And all of them we can do in a low-code way.
Terrific. Let's pivot and talk about your capital raising efforts. One of your investors is Concentric, the founder of Shart and Wrist, who we've already interviewed on the show. Tell us how you were operating your company before you met them. In other words, how were you meeting your financial obligations? And then tell us how you met them in the course of raising capital.
Now we did actually already the second, seed extension with them. The first round with Concentric we did in 2018. But before that, I have sold my previous company. I also were able to invest in the beginning myself, as well as some Estonian-based angel investors, some from UK as well. It's quite standard thing. So we did some seed rounds, early seed, kind of angel rounds in the beginning. But of course, we started also to earn revenues from day one. But yes, in the beginning, our revenues were still smaller than the costs. So it's kind of always a combination of financing from customers and financing from investors. And just bigger you grow, more institutional, as more bigger investors you can get. So I think that's our journey is, I would say, not anything really special.
How did you end up meeting Concentric?
Yeah, Concentric, we met so that one of our actually UK-based angel investor, who is investment banker, connected us. So actually they come through the reference of existing investor.
Have you found in raising capital that is an advantage when it comes to an introduction? I don't know if you've raised money from people that you haven't met before, but do you find that introduction is, significantly more value?
Yes, if I think about my investors, then they all have gone through references. But I think what really doesn't work really well is the cold outreach. But on the other side, investors are also quite aggressive. So nowadays, if you do some kind of effort as a startup to be on a radar, I think you will get a lot of investor inbound interest as well. And I think I personally have spent quite a lot of time kind of talking with investors. And I think probably 95% of them have been actually inbound interest, just have found us and they want to talk with us. But yes, if you look at the facts, then money we have raised only from introduction investors, but I don't know whether is it the rule or is it accident? That's hard to say. But I think one of the job of the entrepreneur clearly is, I don't think that investors are kind of investing in lines, not in dots. You need to start building the relationship with the investors, preferably years earlier than you actually raise money from them. Again, but it could happen other way around, but I think that's how it usually works.
I think a lot of people would agree from their experience. They probably don't have a lot of inbound interest in people knocking on their door. You're saying in your particular case, you think that's just because of years of prior relationships that made it easier for you. I'm just trying to think of, what you would tell entrepreneurs in terms of how do you develop that interest? I mean, you may develop a product that's different than what you were doing before, that may not relate to people that necessarily were in your field before. How do you build those inbound pipeline?
We haven't even deliberately been building that up. It went through Startup Bootcamp Accelerator. And if we went into that accelerator in 2014, so that created a lot of inbound interest. But that inbound interest is a bit also kind of misleading in a way. You get a bit, let's say, initially, my thought was kind of, what the hell? So we are really kind of superstars now. Let's say 50 to 80 VCs approached us. And we are really kind of cool company. But actually, at one point, you understand that is investors' job to build up pipeline. So they will invest into 1 out of 1,000 companies. So you as an entrepreneur very easily will get kind of, your self-confidence will be too high because that inbound interest from investors is just kind of actually mapping you out in their database, having the short calls, and it's not actually the interest to invest. It's actually building up the pipeline. And you as the entrepreneurs, you can understand that. So not to spend too much time on that, because otherwise you're just going to spend too much time on educating their analysts. But trying to find a good balance in that, I think it's what you need to kind of pay attention to.
You think that being part of an incubation program was very helpful in developing those relationships?
Back in 2014, it was really helpful. But at the moment, we also get, I think probably we'll get maybe 4 or 5 emails a month from some investors who want to have a chat. So it's still ongoing, and that's not any more accelerator implication. It's just you get to some kind of radar. But I even don't know how the investors, but I think they have probably some kind of scrollers and some robots in a website trying to find these startups. So it might depend on a sector as well, because usually when they reach out with a story that we are actually kind of searching the insurtech landscape. And if already investor have I want to understand what is happening in insurtech and talk with insurtech companies, then it's not very hard to find INSLY if you already have that goal in mind. So yeah, and I think probably investors also need to be nowadays aggressive, because they are also selling. So because like good investment rounds are usually done, let's say, if you are not yourself proactive, then you don't get access to the good deals. So I think that's a two-sided marketplace here where we are operating.
Tell us about your process for raising money. And what I'm getting at is, did you map out and say, here are our ideal investors, and here's a group that we would like to target, here's the next group, here's another group? Did you have some sort of process identifying who you were going to go after and the order in which you were going to contact them?
As I have probably over 300 investors in my database now, one of the first questions that I always asking is kind of identifying the range of their ticket. So because then you can, out of 300 investors in the database, you can, let's say 200, you can very easily eliminate because they are not at the moment investing in a stage that you are today. I think that's kind of pretty. I think I have two main filters. One is geography, where the investor is, and second is what is their ticket size. Because if it's early stage, then most likely, let's say, for example, it's okay not to talk with the US investors, because US seeds or even A series investors most likely would not invest into Europe. In a B series, it's already okay. So initially close to your continent from your home country, then from let's say Europe, and yeah, kind of if you quickly understand what is their stage, then you already narrow down to reasonable amount of investors to whom you can actually pay a little bit more attention. And then when you have the first phone call with investor, you actually understand quite fast whether that person resonates with your story, whether he understands the sector. Because if the understanding is not there, then there's no point to spend a lot of time on that, because that understanding is not coming. I think these are probably the criteria how I try to segment these investors.
How are your investors helping you? Aside from the money that they gave you, what are they doing to help you? Specific example.
For example, Concentric is, I would say, quite active investor. They are even having, let's say, almost bi-weekly calls with me, discussing a lot of topics, and they are giving you like constant investor feedback, because life in a top is quite lonely. You can talk with your team, but your team drags you down to the details. But you need some kind of push who kind of brings you to the higher level thinking all the time and asks kind of these questions that investors ask. I think that's probably the most valuable part for me. And of course, they are making introduction to other investors as well. But that's probably, I would categorize investors into two categories from existing ones: active ones and passive ones. And I'm even a little bit indifferent whether you are active or passive, but just say who you are and be there. I have a small problem with investors who are passive, and then they at one point just come up with a great idea and without actually kind of doing the legwork and trying to understand what's going on. So I think that's probably what a bit distracts. But if you make your decisions, you want to be involved, then be involved regularly. You don't want to be involved, then give your money and trust the management team. I think, and they both are okay. And I have both types of investors. in my cap table. And that's totally fine because you don't also want to have, let's say, 30 active investors. That's impossible to manage. So it's very okay that only few are active.
You've established 5 insurtech startups. How would you say INSLY's journey is different than the others in terms of how you're growing it?
Probably 2 are actually success stories. One is the broker company Easy that they sold, and the other is INSLY. The other 3 are more, let's say, actually they haven't really succeeded. And there could be 2 reasons why they haven't succeeded. One is that the idea was not perfect. Second is I just didn't pay enough attention to them. And I don't know what's the answer to them, because realistically, only to that broker company and to INSLY, I have devoted my full attention. I have been like the founder, but there has been like someone else managing that, and probably attention has not been probably big enough. But the INSLY, these ones, I think that comes down to the fact that you just need to deal with that. If you, again, I have maybe learned my mistakes as the entrepreneur. You need to be, you make your decision whether you are entrepreneur or you are the investor. And I've tried to do something in the middle before, being like, in principle, bringing my idea and hoping, and bringing my idea and my money and hoping that someone else will execute that. That's usually have failed. And that's why it's kind of, I know where I am entrepreneur, and in some cases, I'm also an investor in many insurtechs, but then I'm not having the sleepless nights. Then it's entrepreneur's problem. I'm just giving them the money. I'm advising them about it. Like, that's their problem. But the successful companies are the ones who have kind of taken away my sleep time. And I've really kind of given my full attention to them. So I think that's probably my learnings from too many things at the same time.
Risto, how may future investors, strategic partners, or customers reach out to you if they're interested in working with INSLY?
I think probably the easiest way is to look me up from the LinkedIn, Risto Rossar, and then write a message there. I usually reply to these messages. Or email is perfectly fine as well, risto@insly.com.
risto@insly.com, correct?
Yes.
Terrific. Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us today, as well as your time. It's a pleasure to hear another successful funding story and the journey of INSLY. We wish you the best, and thanks again.
Thank you very much. It was a fun story, fun to talk with you. So hopefully you will have many fun stories to come in your podcast.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Funding and Disrupting. Don't forget to visit our sponsor, auraco.com, to learn more about working directly with Aura Collective's exclusive technology PR team. They'll help you craft your message, get noticed in the press, and help you get your venture to the funding finish line. Again, you can visit them at www.auraco.com. Keep funding and keep disrupting.